Hey guys, Dr. Bernard Fragomeni with the Human Being to Well-Being Companies. Today we are going to have another one of our rock star coaches on, Kaitlyn Wubben. She is from Wallace, Michigan, and she is currently a nurse, a mother of two. She probably sometimes says Patrick is like the third kid. I don't know. My wife always says it about me. I don't know. I've never really heard this. If you're listening, maybe I'm just making that up. But what we're doing is if you've seen some of these, she's indicating yes. If you've seen some of these little excerpts, we're trying to give the world a little insight into some of the coaches on our team as certified biohacking advisors as we grow on our way to over 100 coaches throughout the country, maybe a little in Canada. Maybe we'll go down to the islands. Maybe we'll go to Mexico. I don't know. We'll see how that all unrolls. Anyway, nonetheless, let's welcome Kaitlyn to the program. Kaitlyn, how are you today?
Good. How about you?
Doing good. Thank you for asking. So you're in the Upper Peninsula area of Michigan, and you're almost into Wisconsin. So for some people that never realize what the state of Michigan is composed of, they forget about that part that's not the mid, right? And that's up where you are.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Michiganders refer to the UP as the top part, and people who live in the lower part are trolls. So we're the Upers, and the lower Michigan
Oh,
people
really?
are the trolls.
Yeah, I'm from.
Yeah, so if you live with,
Yeah, I being from New York, that's kind of almost an upstate New York and a downstate New York or New Yorker thing, you know. But I've never.
yeah, kind of.
It's not really affectionate. Your term. It doesn't sound like it's too affectionate
Oh,
necessarily.
we don't have anything against the lower part of Michigan. It's just they're below the bridge, so they're considered trolls.
I gotcha. It makes crystal clear sense right now, although I wasn't really picking it up at first. So let's talk a little bit. You've got two boys. How old are they now again?
I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they are all boys.
Well, that I'm sure keeps you.
Lots of energy.
Yeah. And that's they're close in age, which can be good, but that could be maybe not so good at times. Depends on depends on what mood they're probably in.
Yeah, they're usually best buds, though. I can't complain.
So you grew up in that area as well, right? And you played some sports in high school. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Born and raised, I breathed sports for a long time. I loved it. I was good at them. It taught me a lot. Uh, it was pretty much my whole childhood was sports from third grade up. And I was a huge tomboy, so I fit right into that.
Yeah. Now, what was your favorite sport?
I was partial to basketball. Part of that helped with that is I was really good friends with another girl who lived and breathed basketball as well, and we made a really good duo. She didn't even have to look. She could launch the ball on a fast break across the court, and I'd be right there to catch it on the other end. And we won a lot of games that way. We had a good symbiotic relationship.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're actually in today's day and age, although the way I'm sitting, you do look taller than me. For some reason, usually Zoom doesn't pick up on that, but you're not short by any means, right? By anyone's standards as a gal.
No, in Minnesota I'd fit in, but I'm 6 feet tall, which is a little bit taller than the average woman.
Yeah, yep, for sure. That could help with basketball. And you had a reputation in some of the local high schools as being kind of you took on a different personality. You're not the calm, demeanored person that you are that I've gotten. You got a little aggressive. What was the nickname?
They called me the Beast. Yeah, I was a little bit competitive, and I'm not a small person. If anyone knows me, I'm not just tall, I'm solid, and I was hard to move. So if I wanted to get somewhere, I was getting there one way or another.
Were there ever any signs in any of the gyms?
No,
No.
not that I can remember. That doesn't mean they weren't there, but there was definitely like, oh my God, there's the Beast, which, as a teenager, either was a good thing or a bad thing. on my emotional well-being, I took it as a good thing.
I think it was affectionate. That's how I would take it. And although you didn't go on, you were offered a scholarship at a school just across the river, right? For basketball, even though you didn't
Yeah, in Green Bay. And I decided not to take it because I was tired of living and breathing basketball. I wanted to play for fun, and I realized that there was more to life than just sports, and I wanted to start branching out. And I was also feeling the wear and tear on my body, and I didn't want to be in my 40s and not be able to use my body the way that I needed to. I didn't want to be crippled early on in life.
Yeah. Well, I think the not getting burnout thing is a good lesson for a lot of parents to hear, because I think a lot of kids that play baseball year round or soccer year round or maybe even basketball year round from a very young age, by the time they reach high school, a lot of times they're already burnt out. I know I was pretty much burnt out a couple different times. I kept playing because I really had a lot of passion for the three sports that I played. But from a lot of people's perspective, even back then, and I didn't play one single sport year round like kids do today. So I think it's good for parents to learn a lesson and hear something like that from somebody that loved basketball, loved sports. And by the time you're just getting through high school, you're already thinking like, kind of had it. It kind of seems like it's been too much. And for sure, you hear that a lot as far as beating up on people's bodies. Basketball is a lot tougher than I think a lot of people realize, because you've been running up and down either on outdoor paved courts or on the hardwoods, and it can beat on your body, especially when you're a young lady developing still. So it's something that you hear time and time again. And maybe we can chalk it up to what happened to you, but you had a surgery this year that you're thinking might be, could still be leftover stuff from that, right?
Well, it turns out that I have a genetic bilateral hip disorder. I have cams on my hips, and it limited my movement in my hips. And I always got teased saying I was so inflexible. It actually turns out that my anatomy limited me on what I could do. And I kept pushing myself through it, thinking that I just needed to push a little harder so that I could get through that. But it ended up ripping out some of my cartilage and tearing my labrum in my right hip. So I had to have that repaired. They smoothed out the cartilage and they scoped the cams back so that I could have fluid movement in my hip and no longer have that tear. But it also taught me that I need to listen to my body and not what other people are saying. Everyone's different,
Yeah, no, I think that's a good lesson. So you've been involved in the healthcare industry now for quite some time. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you got involved as a nurse, and then we'll talk maybe a little bit about some of the stuff that you've been doing and kind of how your perspective has shifted a little bit.
I've always wanted to do something in healthcare from the get-go. From the moment I was born, my mom said that I had that mothering sense, and I guess I took that to a caring, nurturing part of the nursing towards the end of high school, and decided that that's the route I wanted to go. I met my husband right in that time period, and we got married, and we started having a family, and I was in the middle of my nursing program. And I finished, which a lot of my teachers told me that I wasn't going to be able to, that I should take the semester off. I had him on a Wednesday, was back to school on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I only had one semester left. So I needed to do it or it wasn't going to happen. And it was a huge component that was going to be better for our lives. And I really wanted to help people. And while I was in that last trimester with school, and pregnancy hormones didn't help the situation either, but I became really aware of what could go wrong in your utero and development with kids. And it made me really aware of what to feed my oldest child and my youngest now. So I started out like really paying attention to how we did things and how we were eating. And that started the wellness journey for me, because some of that stuff they don't teach in nursing school or medical school. You know, they tell you to eat healthy, but they don't always tell you why. And I started to diving into that a little bit more. And I still really love nursing. I love helping people get better and seeing the progress that people go through over the course of me helping them through their hardships, healthcare wise. My husband, in between, he was diagnosed with Meniere's disease, which is kind of rare. And he gets violent vertigo from many different stressors, but one really big one and easy enough kind of to manage is salt. And we were told that he could only have a trace amount of salt in his food. So I started going through everything we were eating, and I found that salt was in everything. And some of the things you would be like, why is salt in that? So I started really diagnosing absolutely everything we were eating and drinking and how I was making things. And I started getting really frustrated because I'm reading all these labels. I'm not finding what I want. And what I want is so expensive. So I just started making everything from scratch and learning how to cook differently than what I originally knew how. And it helped my husband out a lot. And I learned a lot about ourselves. I lost, I think, 50 pounds because I had some pregnancy weight for a little while. I wasn't heavy by any means, but I went from having an 8-pack to having a little extra. And I was able to get that off after we changed our diet. And we weren't unhealthy to begin with eating wise, but taking out all those preservatives and the sugars and the salts, I started getting rid of the extra water that was hanging on. And I just was able to lose that extra weight like that. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah.
And when I started going through all this and paying attention to everything, while I was at work doing my nursing stuff, I started really hammering home the wellness stuff to my patients. I was like, I should be getting paid extra for this. I know all this stuff. And I decided to go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree in health and wellness so that I could help people with wellness care versus sick care, to keep them or get them on a journey to a healthier lifestyle before they're sick or really sick.
Yeah, no, that's really important, and that's awesome to hear your motivation for it. So you work with different people. I know that you're usually trying to educate them on the nutrition side, as you just mentioned, but in particular, there's one group of people you told me that you feel really need your help and need help. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I work a lot with diabetics. It is very, very common for people to get diagnosed with diabetes, especially later in life. And not many people really know how to manage it. There's a lot that goes with it to manage what sugar levels that people are supposed to be within. A lot of people think that when they're sitting higher, it's okay just because they feel okay, but it's harder on their bodies. Some people don't know what to do when their sugars are really low or really high. I've had people tell me countless times that their only thing that they do to get their sugar up is to eat something high in sugar. Yes, that will spike your insulin for a short period of time, but that's not going to keep that sugar from dropping back down to a dangerous level again if you run lower or if for some reason you are running lower than normal. I try to teach my patients that if they're dangerously low, yes, take something with some sugar to help spike that up, but give them some protein to help hold that sugar so that they don't drop until the next meal. And a lot of people are always really surprised at why the protein. And I just tell them that it takes longer for their body to digest, and their insulin levels stay a little more stable when they have that protein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's always a dance between is somebody, and it's not always really readily apparent, is somebody that's X years into a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes in particular, we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah. Usually when people are type 1, they've got it down pretty pat unless they're kids.
yeah. So people know what we're talking about. We're talking about type 2, or what used to be called adult onset diabetes, but they changed the name because so many young kids are getting diagnosed with it, unfortunately, now. But it's tough sometimes to know if somebody's really in the throes of being hypoglycemic or hyperinsulinemic, because there's really an argument that a lot of folks have as far as, how soon have they been diagnosed? What does their profile look like? As far as, how often they spike, how they spike in relationship to certain foods, like you just mentioned. And regardless of where they are, one of the things that at least that I'm always trying to do is to try to get the dispersion of their, we'll just make it simple for people, that if they're looking at, sugar levels, because people throw these terms around as far as different things out there, but, we don't want to see somebody that's 100 and then 160. That volatility is really what can cause a lot of issues, and causes a dysregulation that it almost seems like the insulin can never catch up to, right? There's either an overshoot one way or the other. So
Yeah.
you love to cook. So some of the,
Yes.
yeah, and you've really explored this lower salt thing because of what Patrick's had to deal with, and you've done a great job with that. And I know you're real diligent with what you do with the kids. How does a conversation sound with some of these folks that you're caring for, though? I mean, is it trying to get them to stop eating fast foods and processed foods along the way too, or is it trying to give them? You mentioned the protein thing, but what other things are you maybe telling people as far as things that they should change with their diet?
A lot of the people that I work with that are diabetic tend to be a little on the older side. So I have to get them to either get on a meal plan with a company like Mom's Meals or Meals on Wheels kind of thing that will specify diabetic plans. I don't particularly like that unless there's no other option. Otherwise, I will educate them on the different things that they can make at home. Most people like easy and convenient and fast. So I try to focus on the easier stuff because a lot of the people that I work with, that's all they can do. And then if they are willing to learn more about it, then I educate them a little bit more, and then just kind of feeding them little by little so that their skills can move up with the knowledge I give them. Because if I give them too much information at one shot or give them something that's really big to do, they get overwhelmed and then they don't want to do it. So I try to do it in small doses.
Yeah. So what's your attitude when you talk to them about, for instance, types of carbohydrates to eat? What do you tell them usually about that type of stuff?
I tell them if they're gonna eat that stuff to try and make sure that they're clean. A lot of people really like overprocessed bread. I get it, it tastes good, but it's so bad for you. Like the 99-cent white bread,
Mhm.
it's terrible. Go to the bakery and get some real bread if that's something that you're gonna eat. A lot of my patients like cereal because it's easy. And I tell them, if you're going to do that, find something that's lower in sugar, organic, non-GMO. I try and gear them towards the cleaner, non-preservative ingredients. And I did pass on some of your potato trick where you cook the potato ahead of time, let it cool, and then it becomes a resistant starch.
Yep. Yep. It's definitely something we try to tell people. Yeah. I mean, the thing that I find with a lot of these folks is to get them to understand it's not that all carbs are bad. It's just that those simple carbs are not good for you. It's complex carbs. I find myself sometimes with some of these folks putting back in things like the potato trick that you just mentioned, or squashes, or sweet potatoes, even, which some people are like, whoa, sweet potatoes. But yeah, I mean, they're okay. I try to get them to make sure they're having a balanced meal. So even if it's not a real
Mhm.
well, even if they really feel they have to be eating, chicken and steak and pork and things like that. I want them to have, if it's folks that I know can't, don't want, need, or desire to become complex in the kitchen. I even try to get them to, put a third of a plate with each hand, and just say, cover that with something, a vegetable there, some sort of complex carbohydrate there, and then, some sort of lean, hopefully very clean protein as well. The sugars and the things that you rifled off, people would be blown away if they realize the sugar that's in white bread. That's why it tastes good, because it's sugar and fat. The cereals, my God, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure there's something out there. I don't know. Grape nuts. I don't even know. I don't even know cereals anymore. I don't even know the last time we have granola in our house. That's about it. But you got to be careful.
There are some organic brands that have little to no sugar in them. I wouldn't say it's the greatest option, but it's a much better option than like Frosted Flakes and Cheerios and stuff like that.
No, it's crazy the amount of sugar that can be hiding in them. But from my perspective, it's just still trying to get people off of a lot of those things in general. And it's hard because they're convenient foods and they're cheap,
Well, and something else that people don't realize when they eat that kind of stuff is nobody eats the serving size of a bowl of cereal because it's not very filling. It's very empty, and it doesn't do a whole lot for your body. So the stuff that you're reading on the back, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. Well, you ate like 3 times the serving suggestion in a bowl, and then you have that much more in your body that probably shouldn't be there to begin with.
Yeah, and unless you're maybe using a low-fat milk or a nut milk, unless you're really having the best grain-based cereal that has the least amount of sugar possible. And then if you're maybe loading, a green banana on it on top of that, you're really hard pressed to do what I said. I mean, I know you can't have a third like in a bowl of cereal, but what you're educating people about is to maybe one, if you're going to do that, try to minimize the damage, right? And then maybe not do it. Like maybe think of something else to eat.
Yeah, I do try to gear them towards other things that are a little bit healthier, but a lot of people really like cereal. And if they do use stuff like cereal, I suggest them to do the serving size and then to make it more filling, to add things to it. Like if you're going to eat a bowl of Cheerios, add bananas, add nuts, hemp seeds, great. Yeah, you may not appreciate it at first, but once you get over some of those things, it ends up tasting really good, and it's a lot more for your body.
Yeah.
Because cereal isn't a whole meal. It's a very small portion of a meal. It doesn't provide much for you. And there's a lot of foods out there that are like that. And I try and people like Pop-Tarts too, and that drives me nuts. They are so terrible for you. I try and throw those away.
Yeah.
Bad juju.
Yeah, that's the clean out when they're not paying attention. They end up in the garbage. But the thing that people need to realize is you like these things, and people like these things because they're sweet, and they're oftentimes they have oils hidden in them. Which is even really for diabetics, actually the oils, it can be worse. They're certainly not great in general. With sugar alongside the oils, they can actually have an even amplified effect with what they do to dysregulate somebody's insulin and sugar levels. So, I mean, these are things that are connected that a lot of people don't think about. What you're talking about, which I think is important for people to hear, is trying to get people to think about food as nutrition, right? It's not really how we a lot of us, and all the stuff that's marketed to both kids as well as some folks is stuff that tastes good, but it's really not very nutrient dense, right?
Yeah, so there's my oldest son is very inquisitive, and I've been teaching them how to look at labels, and if you see a million ingredients on something, it's probably not good for you. And we go over the ingredients and of what that prepackaged thing that they got at school at versus what it should be. And my sons have both asked me, what's food? Why do we need food? I'm like, well, why does a car need gas? Excuse me.
Yeah.
that's the fuel. That's what makes it run. Well, I tell them that's what food is for us. That's what makes us run. And if we put premium in our gas, it runs better, right? Less maintenance that you have to do on the engine. Same thing applies to us. If we're putting good, high quality food in our bodies, it's less likely that we're going to get diseases later on in life. If we keep putting that highly processed food in our body that contains a lot of extra ingredients, chemicals, preservatives, the salts and the sugars, we're going to end up with a lot of different cancers and health-related diseases like diabetes and cardiac issues and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really simple analogy, but that's just an example of how I've been teaching my boys, and I try to be a little bit more complex when I'm teaching other people about food as fuel, not something that's just supposed to taste good in our mouth.
Well, I think it's really a good lesson for kids or adults to learn how to read labels and realize what they're putting in their body, because they're, in most parts of the country, I mean, there are certain parts when we're working with people all over, you can hear that maybe they don't have as many choices as some other parts of the country as far as healthier options. But there is almost always like, eat this, not that. It's the lesser of two evils, maybe. But let's go lesser. I mean, I think that's a good thing, and I think it does start with being able to pronounce the things on the label and making sure there's not a lot of hidden sugars and additives and oils that are hiding in a lot of this stuff. Salt, as you mentioned, because with what Patrick has to deal with, I mean, it's very important that people. I'm not anti-salt, except for if somebody's got a condition like your husband has. But very few people, from a hypertension standpoint, really are super ultra reactive to salt, but they're not getting the right salt into their diet.
I was just going to make that point.
They're not getting salt that's rich in micronutrients and minerals that come from stuff that's unrefined or Himalayan pink sea salt. I think that stuff's, it's important for people to know that in certain conditions, we got to really be careful with salt, but many people are actually low in salt for the most part that we find. So, but now, so you work with folks, you're doing that. You obviously, we're excited to have you as you're starting to make your transition to eventually be able to hopefully work with us full time is what we want you to be able to do. So we're just kind of in the midst of making this transition. What do you think, you've always wanted to help people, but what's your biggest motivator, you think, for wanting to be able to coach people and have that be what you do all the time? Is something come to mind when I ask you that?
I get a huge personal satisfaction from people being happy with themselves and feeling good. This is an example. It's mostly just making people happy, but I had a diabetic patient that had a really low blood sugar, and she ran out of test strips. And so there was no way for me to test her sugar again after to make sure that it came back to a safe level. So I had to feed her a really high protein, high sugar breakfast. And she gets the mom's meals, and which is like a prepackaged meal that they get. And she didn't have any left. She wanted a peanut butter and jelly and a bowl of shredded wheat. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. It's like, that might bring your sugar up, but not for long and not to where it needs to be. So I made her this big homemade breakfast that was high protein and a little bit of high sugar to help spike it, but mainly the higher protein to help hold it. And she was smelling me cooking, and she just kept talking about how good it smelled. And she took the first bite of that food, and she's like, I didn't think it was going to taste this good. This is food for the soul. I don't care what you've done in your past, you're going to heaven. I was like, well, thank you. And I made the comment later saying we'll have scrambled eggs in heaven together. But it just made me feel so good that I was able to make her happy with some of the knowledge that I have, and to put her in a better spot with her sugars and help educate her a little bit more. And it just, I don't know, it just makes me happy to help people. And I don't like seeing how unhealthy everything is right now with a lot of people in general. And I want to help them get back to a healthy lifestyle because they'll be able to do a lot more in life without having to worry about going to the doctor for their heart pills or what have you.
Yeah. And why do you want to make a transition away from just what you're doing? Like, what kind of has you excited about that? I know you love nursing, but
I do love nursing. I am tired of pushing pills. That's a Band-Aid. It's a temporary fix. Most people aren't supposed to be on the medications that they're on for a lifetime, and a lot of people are. And it frustrates me that there's a lot of people out there that have illnesses that can be treated and or fixed just by their diet. And a lot of people don't realize how much of an impact the food that they put in their bodies has on their overall well-being. And I want to educate people on wellness care versus sick care. That was one of my bigger drives.
yeah, yeah. And when I sit and listen to you, which we don't always get a chance to sit down and talk like this unless we're, in between meetings, or you're doing everything that you do to be both a full-time mom, work full-time, plus fit this in, plus take care of the house and all the stuff that you do with making sure that Patrick gets supported the way that he needs to. I'm not trying to make it sound like Patrick doesn't do anything, people, if you're listening. So that's certainly not the point.
No, he's a good helper. He works a ton of hours.
I know he does. But to me, what I hope is coming through to people is how much you care, about helping other people, and you're dedicating your life to hopefully being able to work with people on a consistent basis doing these things, because you've educated yourself. But what I hope is coming through to people is that, in my opinion, and I think Kaitlyn and I've talked specifically about this before, is that these types of things need to be done as a family. And a lot of times we hear from people, this runs in my family, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What we really know is what runs in the family is what? Like, how would you put it? If somebody said that to you, what would you say to them?
Well, it depends on what it is, because some of that stuff is genetic, but most of the time it's not. It's they were programmed to eat a certain way, to live a certain way, and it just happened that most of their family ended up with those diseases. So it seems like it's genetic, but really it's just a continual passing on of improper eating and living lifestyle, which a lot of people think is an okay, healthy lifestyle, but really it's not.
Yeah, it's a relative thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a population of people, it's kind of like when we talk about functional medicine testing versus allopathic medicine testing, is that, somebody comes back and goes, hey, I've got this, and this going on, Dr. Fragomeni, or working with one of the other coaches, or working with you, but yet they've got all these issues. But yet when you look at their labs are kind of in the normal range for almost everything. But when you look at what they've got going on and some of the diagnoses that they've got, they're sick. But that gives you a frame of reference as far as what that population of people looks like from a testing perspective, is that the average person in our country, unfortunately, is sick, and way too many of them have the issue that you brought up with type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's beyond a pandemic or epidemic. It's endemic, meaning there are so many people that it's so common. I wish we were in an uproar about this. I'm not trying to minimize the COVID thing that's going on, but I wish people were as upset with what's going on with the health of families and the health of children as much as they were with this current crisis that we're going through with COVID. And I know that you feel the same way with that. Well, I know we're really excited for what you're going to be able to do with people. And I hope for people that are listening to this, feel the same way. And the cool thing that's happening all over this world, I guess you could say right now, is people are waking up to the fact that if they want to work with a coach like Kaitlyn, who is becoming one of our certified biohacking advisors, you can do it no matter where you are in the country. She'd certainly welcome, people that are local, although you can't see each other locally basically anywhere in the country right now anyway. But
Not right now, no.
but for anybody that's up in that Wisconsin area or the Upper Peninsula Michigan area, we'll put Kaitlyn's contact information out when we post this, so you can reach out to her and schedule an initial appointment with her. I think what you've been able to see is, one, she's somebody that cares an awful lot. Two, she can work with your family just like she works with her family, which I think is really important to say, because a lot of people don't think about that. And it's certainly something we offer up to people as far as working with an entire family. And that's certainly a knowledge that you've got. Three is, if anybody else is listening to this who's got somebody that they know that's dealing with the same issue as Patrick, you've got somebody that's educated herself and become somewhat of an expert in that area. And there are people out there. It's a fairly rare diagnosis, but it's not completely, uncommon. You'll run in. I don't know what the prevalence is right now off the top of my head, but it's not so rare that I haven't run into people and cared for people that have those issues going on. So it's out there, and it's something that if you knew somebody that had to manage through it, boy, I'd want to pick her brain, about what to do, and that's important. Is there anything, if you were kind of trying to speak to anyone about your background, your knowledge, and your passion, is there anything else you want to add, Kaitlyn, that you can think of that I might not have asked you?
I don't know about that. I do know that anyone who's listening and would consider reaching out to me for help would be that I am relatively an open book. You don't have to feel intimidated by talking to me. I love educating people about all this stuff. It's kind of a passion of mine. No question is a dumb question. And I mean that to the fullest extent. If you don't know the answer to something, I want to be able to help you so that you do know. And I like to have fun with my teaching, so we may get a good few laughs in there too. So it's not always going to be serious.
No, you're actually pretty high up there on a funny scale. You've got a sense of.
Oh, thank you. My husband wouldn't agree.
Our spouse never do. No spouse thinks the other spouse is funny. I think it's just like something that's preordained in the ethosphere or something. I'm not really sure where it comes from, but that's definitely, most people don't think their spouse is funny.
He says I'm entertaining, but it's because I'm klutzy and goofy. Not so much that I'm funny. That
can still be funny, but not at whose expense, right? So, well, anyway.
I don't mind.
Well, listen, it's been great to take this time to be able to chat with you. Like I mentioned, we will put up your contact information so that people can reach out to you. We are really blessed and excited for you to be making the maneuver with us and being part of our company. That's going to be a very fast growing process that we'll be going into as we enter into the non-COVID year, which that's what I'm now starting to call 2021. I hope I'm right.
Should you put a TMI after that?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I hope I'm right that 2021 is going to be a non-COVID year. I'm hoping that we're not going to be referring to this thing every other second like we are in this year. So for those of you that are interested, first off, give Kaitlyn a shout out. We'll have her contact information, and keep on the lookout. We'll be having about another 15 to 16 of these going out in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks as we push through the end of the year and come out on the other side of what we're going to call 2021. And I wish you all the best, Kaitlyn. We'll be in touch. And for those of you listening, like us, follow us, subscribe to us, keep in touch with all the stuff that's happening, because our company is going to be rapidly rising and become something that you'll be seeing out in the marketplace more and more. Everybody go out and make this a great day. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
This has been the Human Being to Well-Being Show with Dr. Bernard J. Fragomeni. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms so you can stay in touch and in tune with everything that we're bringing you around health style, transformation, natural medicine, functional nutrition, nutritional psychology, and the whole gamut that's going to make you live forever as a well-being. Go out and make this day the best day you've ever had, because it's the one that we've got.